you should not dedicate more than 3 hours a month to creating content. And this is what I do with the founders I work with.
So I'm going to welcome Gail today to Utopia Decision Room podcast. Gail has built a company on the bet that podcasts are the highest leverage go-to-market channel a B2B founder has in 2026. Gail plays over 100 podcast appearances to founders. He will tell you on tape which ones he wished he hasn't taken and what that tells software founders about how to choose a go-to-market channel they can't see clearly from their own personal perspective. So Gail, first, welcome to the podcast. And second, for people who don't know you yet, can you give a short introduction of who you are, what does Podstar do, and what gives you the point of what you're going to talk about today that makes you the expert of podcasts?
Sure, no worries. So thank you so much, Gina, for hosting me here. My name is Gal, and I've been in digital marketing since 2010, way before we even had invented the like button. Nowadays, what I do, I lecture on digital marketing at Google and Reichman University, and I'm a solopreneur with two businesses. The first one is Bold PMM, where I help B2B SaaS companies raise money, go to market. I already raised over $20 million for my clients. And I also have Podstar, which is the podcast guesting for leaders. That's the service, that's the community, that's the challenge. And this is what I do. I actually stumbled on podcasting as a tool to create more authority and deeper trust for my product marketing companies, for the startups I work with. And since then, this is what I do, and this is what I love doing. So, yeah.
And so interesting, like you are also a marketing lecturer and at Google. So tell me, like, since when do you believe that podcasts and YouTube would be one of the main strategy that founders should focus on as a marketing channel?
So look, I think that these days when AI lets everyone create content and robustically, I mean, everyone can create so many pieces of content, textual or even, AI can even help us create podcasts these days. But the thing is, we lost the human connection with that. And, I think that podcasting, it is the best way to actually create content and generate trust. And I think that for B2B founders, this is the best place for us to be because and I wouldn't say any podcast is a good podcast. And I wouldn't say that you need to start your own show because that is wrong. Don't get me wrong. I think that people, and especially founders for B2B startups and tech companies, need to borrow trust from other hosts and other shows where they already established connection and audience in this specific industry. And once you get on their show, their reach and their audience is what builds the trust with you. And you can build your authority so people can hear about what you say. And if you've been, let's say, assuming you are a B2B founder in the fintech world, okay, finance technology, that's a messy industry and it like lots of things going on there. But if you go and gonna speak about your startup on, let's say, 20 shows in the fintech industry, eventually you're gonna become the most recognized voice inside the industry. And this is what I want to help people achieve. It opens doors to intros. It opens doors to meetings. It also creates pipeline. People come to other people because they trust them. And what you have with podcast is something that no post or no other social platform can replace because it is 45 of uninterrupted conversation that leads to you having more authority. And this is what actually helps people, because people scroll all the time and they spend so much time on scrolling, but it doesn't lead to trust. So, yeah.
Yes. I feel like with the AI generated content evolving this generation, like no one really reads in depth. Even if they read it, they will assume it is AI generated. So, you don't trust so quickly as compared to listening to someone face to face, in your face, your computer talking to you. So let's start at the top. Like a software founder scaling in the US market sits down to plan their marketing strategy for this or next year. Like out of their entire marketing budget and their personal time as the founder of the company, what percentage should actually go into podcast and long form video content?
So I would say that in general, I would say, because I've been in marketing for a lot of years, I would say that people people should do marketing in a way that feels comfortable for them and wouldn't get them to chase after guests or creating their own shows and deal with production and editing and all of those kind of things, because creating your own show might be super hard. And to dedicate, as a founder, to dedicate 25 hours a week to create your own show, that is a no-go. That is something that you should not do. And also, as a founder, because you have so much liability, you have to, create a good product, raise investments, and all of those kind of things that you already need to deal with. So if you decide to go on social media and post every day, it would just take your focus from creating a startup to creating content. And I would say that as a founder, you should not dedicate more than 3 hours a month to creating content. And this is what I do with the founders I work with, because they go on 3 shows each month. And out of those 3 shows, we create over 30 or even 90 posts, because we take that long form, that conversation, and we multiply it and create X threads, blog posts, newsletters, all of those kind of things, all of those materials that we can generate now. AI is helping me. Yeah, don't get me wrong. AI is great, but it would not take the topics and the discussion away from people. So you as a founder should be the one who speaks about the problem, about the solution, about how you're dealing with this industry pain points. And you should just take this conversation and repurpose that. So I would say, as a founder, don't dedicate more than 3 hours a month to creating content.
Mhm. And based on what you say, like, so the obvious biggest move is to save time as a founder is to get on the biggest podcast they can get on in their industry. So I don't think that's right as well. So what is the first thing that software founders get wrong, and how should they choose if they don't have so much time, like you mentioned?
So first of all, I would say that the biggest problem for founders is that they don't believe they can speak on podcasts. So before we even go to podcast, people think that they need to have 50K followers. They need to be at a Forbes 30 under 30 list or something like that in order to be speaking on podcasts. But the truth is, all you have to have is a story, a lesson, a transformation that you have and you can share, and a message that helps people. This is what you need to speak on podcasts. Now, I wouldn't say that every show is a good show, just because it is not, okay? If I'll go on a podcast that speaks about, let's say, content creating for YouTube or for TikTok, that wouldn't serve me as good as going for a podcast that is in the B2B industry, that speaks directly to my persona. So absolutely not every show is a good show. And, I got so many clients and people approaching me and telling me, look, I want to go on the Diary of a CEO. And, this is like the top rated podcast out there. And, they cannot do it. Seriously. They're not like Elon Musk. They don't have these systems and frameworks, many, proof points. And they cannot do it. So I would say you need to find your perfect show. And not any podcast is a good exposure. Only the right audience, right stage build trust and leads and authority.
So just say a podcast that is targeting directly their ICPs, but with a smaller audience space compared to one that has millions of viewers, but are not their ICP. So which one will you choose?
So I would definitely go to a podcast that has, let's say, 1,000 monthly listeners, but they are my ICP. They are the right persona. I would definitely go to this. 20 times rather than go on a show with hundreds of thousands of listeners that doesn't speak to my audience. I actually have a framework to score which podcast is a good for me. And let me share this one with you because the framework is super simple. It is stage.
Mhm.
Okay. S stands for size and signal. So obviously we would want to go on shows that has real audience, and you can check it. You can go on YouTube, see if they got viewers, if they got newsletters, if they have social media accounts that they'll share their podcast on. So this is size and signal. T is for topic fit. It needs to match your ICP expertise and topics. So, for example, I speak about podcasting. I would not go to speak about TikTok because that's not what I do, or email newsletters. That's not what I do. So this is T, topic. A is for activity. You need to check if there is a consistent activity behind the show. So if they didn't post in the latest 30 days, just don't go there because they're not active. This is for sure. Activity is important. G is for guest friendly. Most shows has guests, but some shows doesn't. And you cannot go on a show that doesn't feature any guests. So you need to check. And E, the latest one, the last one is engagement. You can actually see if people are engaging with the content or in the community or with the page of the podcast. Because if you go on a podcast and they has zero engagement, something is fishy here. So yeah, just don't go on that. So stage, that's it. That's the framework that I keep to score podcasts.
That's really very specific. So regarding this framework and your work across with founders from Israel, Europe, and the US, is it the same playbook in every market, or is there a difference for the US market and in Israel and Europe? Like for US software founders, like I think it's more focused on podcast, YouTube here, but do you think it will be any difference?
So no, I would say, look, most podcasters nowadays are welcoming guests from all over the world. It doesn't have necessarily to be Israeli or from the Middle East or from Europe or from the US. But the thing is that when we reach out to podcasts, we need to do some work before that in order to get the yes. And the same work goes to podcasts from Israel or the US. All you have to do is to research the show, extract a personal win from the recent episode that you heard, and align your topic, what you want to discuss about, with their audience. And then you need to connect with them with warmth. So you can do it over on email or LinkedIn to pitch yourself to the show. And age is handle follow-up. So this is reach. Also, that's another framework. Yeah. And
I like that
it goes for the US, for Israel, for podcasters. They have one problem. Okay, they have a guarantee to their listener. Each show has some specific value or goal that they're trying to give their audience, their listeners. And if you, if you mark V on those things, you would be the perfect guest, and they will accept you as a guest. And regardless from their location and where they show, or even the language they speak. So yeah.
Okay, that's very cool. And before that, like you have said, before that and now you have said in 3 different seats, like product marketing, marketing lecturer at Google, and now you're placing founders podcasts on your own business. Like across all 3, like what is one thing that founders refuse to listen to you that you have told them before? Like, is there anything that you have told them before, but they don't believe that this is the right way? Because I think everyone has a different perspective, and based on your experience across these roles.
Yes, sure. Look, I think that in general speaking, I think that there is a rule that most founders and most marketers are actually neglecting. And it is sad for me to see it from this side because this rule is so basic, and it's like, it is, I think, This is what they need to learn when they learn about marketing, about founder-led growth marketing. And it is 11-4 rule. And this is like Google stated what a customer needs to go through in order to become a customer for you. So
Mhm.
a customer has to go through 7 hours of engagement with your brand, with your content in order to convert. So it could be posts, blogs, videos, podcasts, newsletters. And if you don't delegate and if you don't create the content that is needed for 7 hours of engagement, then you would not convert. That's the thing. People need to feel this, inside. They need to feel that they have the same situation, the same problem as you, or maybe you can help them. And 7 hours of engagement, that's the first thing. The other thing is they have to have come across 11 touch points. So that could be, liking your post. That could be visiting your webpage, reading your blog, watching your video, or listening to you on Spotify. That should be 11 individual interactions with your brand. And the last one, four, is they has to do it across 4 different locations or platforms. So you could, could be LinkedIn, YouTube, Spotify, it could even a physical store, for example. But 7-11-4, that's the basic rule that people don't know that they need to follow in order to convert clients.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting. So now we have 2 touch points. So maybe we'll build the third one next week. So back to this 7-11. I heard about this before, but does this only apply to B2B founders or B2C as well? Like, what do you think about the differences?
I think that, because B2B founders, usually their sales cycle are so long because you
Yeah.
have the economic buyer, you have the technical buyer to give them the results they want, or, give them the things they want to see in order to move on with the sales. So that thing is especially for the B2B, the 7-11-4 rule is especially fitted to the B2B. But eventually, you maybe take a subway and you see a banner of a beautiful, let's say, bottle, for example. For
Yeah.
B2C, you just need to see something that you want, and you can just buy it. By B2B, the process is so long. You need to have all these touch points and all this engagement with the buyer in order to convert them. So that's the rule for B2B, especially B2C. Yeah.
More trust before you give the cash. Like,
Yeah. Because also, B2C, how much is a bottle? It could be $20 or $30 if it's the most expensive thing. But B2B buyers, obviously, they pay tens of them. So that is a decision to make, and it might be hard. So you need to do your research. You need to do your due diligence about the company. You need to know if this founder or this company is going to serve you well, or is it honeypot that you're gonna buy something and then next month you're gonna have a problem and no one's gonna help you and you don't have the trust with them, and then you're gonna eventually look out for another service provider, and it just takes time. No one wants to do wrong decisions. So yeah.
yeah. And this also goes to the point, like all the founders that you have placed on podcasts up till today, like the ones who did the appearance on different podcasts, got the clips, posted them, like what percentage walk away with nothing and what percentage actually walk away with something to gain? And is there any KPI or things that they can track?
So in terms of, I think that this question is linking me to, proving ROI with podcasting.
Yeah.
So obviously, creating content is one thing. And, I think that content generation, it's just the byproduct of being on podcast. Because what we want to achieve is we want to achieve leads, we want to achieve trust within our industry. The content itself is just something that we create. It's a byproduct, but the trust is the asset. Now, before we move on, if you want the full answer to ROI on podcast, yes, obviously, each client of mine that went on a podcast, they got at least 30 pieces of content out of it. And this is nice because, people pay nowadays over tens of thousands of dollars to create content. And I just give them in just 3 hours a month, I give them a pipeline of over 90 posts. So in terms of ROI in content, yeah, that's okay. And that is nice, but that's not what I'm talking about. The thing is, out of each episode that my clients go on, we also create a pipeline. Now, the way we do it is very particular and specific. We go on the past guests list and watch out for anyone who spoke on this podcast as my client and see if they are the right ICP for us, if we have a match between them. So we go over the list of past guests and we see actually what they mentioned, what their episode discussed about, what was there. And based on what they said inside the podcast, we connect with them on LinkedIn or send them an email or even tell the host, look, this guy has been on your show. He's episode 130. I'm episode 180. Can you match with us? Can you match us? Can you do that click for us? And this leads to pipeline, and it just generates leads, and it costs $0. And each host is, hosts are like networkers. They would like to do it, and it costs nothing from their side. So that is the fastest way to prove ROI from being on a podcast.
Yeah, I can agree with this as well. Also, this is also how I found you, was through Brandon's podcast that I got on his podcast. And then he referred you to me. So, it's kind of a chain, like a chain reaction.
It is.
Yeah. So if a software founder from the US comes to you tomorrow with 20K budget and 12, want to build a US market pipeline. So what would you actually do for them that you believe will work in 2026?
So, first of all, look, I do so many things in terms of marketing, but with this kind of budget, 20K would be a suitable budget to create pipeline for anyone. Seriously, I don't think that people need to spend $7,000 to create a demo. And this is actually what happening nowadays on LinkedIn. People are spending $7,000 for a demo, not even a client. It's just a demo. But I think that this is crazy, and people should do it differently. If a client comes to me with a 20K, I would say, look, we can take this 20K and place you on 80 shows. And out of those 80 shows, in terms of content, we create a content pipeline and content bank for years. We can create content for years, and we can create pipeline for years as well. And, we can place that client at the top of his industry and the leading voice of his industry. So yeah, this is what I would do. And I would say that, most shows actually don't cost money to be on. So that's the thing.
Yeah. And what do you say? Because I know you are from a marketing background. Yes. If a founder were to compare for sales and marketing, obviously sales, you can prove ROI more. There are tangible metrics, and marketing you can't, even though it brings a lot of leads from inbound content and all the activity going on online. So what would you say, how would you convince a founder to dedicate more time for inbound and in marketing? Because most will obviously hire a first salesperson if they were to raise fundings and scale, right?
Yeah. Look, I've been there before. I've actually, before I did that, I had my own company. I also worked with startups, and I've been at the place that you don't have the authority or you don't come up as an industry expert if you just show on paid ad. Once you run out of money, you don't have anyone to come back to your website because you don't have money to spend on ads. So once you, let's say, focus strictly on sales, and what you do is just running ads, eventually when you run out of money, people are not coming to you. So this is why I would really argue and tell people, look, you should invest in your own brand. You should invest in your own content. You should invest in yourself. You should place yourself at, like, position yourself at the top of your industry. And if no one is gonna, in a organic way, I would say, then it's like you don't exist once the ad account is getting blocked, because sometimes it happens. The ad account is getting blocked, and then what now? We don't have a pipeline. We don't have any clients coming in. We don't have meetings. So I would say to rely solely on paid ads, that's a no-go for me.
And for someone who has been doing paid ads for a long time, would you tell them to drop paid ads completely and go into organic content, inbound podcast, YouTube, or would you tell them to split it into half?
If they have the budget, I would say that, like, the basic thing that I would recommend for them to do is, doing a pull campaign, not a push campaign. You don't want to just, like, push banners to people's eyes. That is not going to serve you as a B2B company. What you want to do is to do a search campaign. And I would do, the way I would structure this search campaign is to do a competitors ad group. So for example, if someone is searching for my competitors, I'm going to show up on Google. That is just like the first thing I would do on Google. The other thing is obviously branded campaign. So if you have your own brand, once people search for it on Google, you want to be there. You want to rank high. So if you don't have the SEO for that, you should pay to do it. That's for sure. So I would say the pull campaign rather than the push, I would do it, and also focus on creating the brand, the marketing strategy for it, the content itself. That is what I would do with a low budget. Obviously, with high budget, you can do everything. You can place billboards. You can do whatever it is. You can buy the football biggest ad. So yeah.
So based on the experiences, I assume you have done ads as well for yourself. Like, what do you see are the returns for a software company in the US that does ads only compared to doing podcasts only compared to doing both?
Look, as I mentioned, I think that, Google's 7-Eleven rule also applies here. X is one channel, LinkedIn is other channel. I would say that if you do B2B, you need to be on X and LinkedIn. And especially nowadays also YouTube, because all those AI bots and AI companies are actually scrolling through YouTube in order to find their solutions and theirs to people's queries. So you should also do YouTube, but and Reddit, obviously. But the thing is, you should be everywhere. This is why I would focus on creating a long form video or a long form content, and then split it to lots of short forms. And this you can, with one podcast, you can create like tens of threads on X. And this is the way I would do it. Because, just going on this mouse wheel, the trapped mouse wheel that you always need to run in order to create more posts, that is not the way to do marketing. That is not the way to promote yourself.
I think that is also a way most people do, but it will eventually lead to burnout because you have to keep doing new things, and sometimes you don't have the creativity to just think of ideas. You can't just sit down and think of something creative. Right? You need time to like see the trends and the market.
Yeah, absolutely.
So also, like, one question that is not so common, is there a kind of founder that should not be doing podcasts at all?
That is an interesting question. I would say, look, I had many clients. I've actually had some failures with clients. Yeah, sure. Everyone does. One of the failures I had with a client is that he paid me. He was looking forward to speak on podcasts. And then when we tried to book him on podcasts, he said to me, look, I'm not fully confident in my English, and I'm not fully confident in the way that I can speak. And maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm too technical, or maybe I'm too salesy. So those are the things that I would say, look, podcasts are not to sell to people. I'm not here to sell to people. I'm here to get them through a transformation and to help them to understand something better. So if you're a salesperson, don't go on a podcast. If you are too technical and you cannot explain what you're trying to say without showing your, I don't know, system or your infrastructure behind that, so don't go on a podcast. You can create a video on YouTube, but don't go on a podcast for that. The other thing is that, look, if you don't feel comfortable in your skin, people can see it. And this kind of energy would not help people to actually accomplish the listening to the podcast. So don't do it. It needs to be something that you feel comfortable with. Yeah.
Yeah, so actually there's a majority of people that I would like to speak to. For example, like if a software founder that is very technical also has to be the CEO of the company, then what would be better for them to put the same amount of time and budget instead of a podcast if they can't do it organically?
I think that for a technical person to create long form content, I would focus on YouTube. Yeah. Create tutorials on how to do stuff, create tutorials on how the infrastructure that you've created is made, what led you to create this in a certain way. That is for technical people. But there are also technical podcasts. So maybe you should go there. But eventually, if you need to show rather than to speak, then go on YouTube.
Yeah, that brings me to the point. I think not everyone is very comfortable with being on YouTube online. I mean, me as well in the past. I think it takes a lot of courage and time to put yourself out there because anyone in the world can literally see you, judge you. So it takes some kind of guts. And I wanted to ask you this question. So you started building Bold PPM 3 years ago. And what made you decide to pivot to podcasting and creating a company for podcasts?
So the thing is, I actually started Bold PMM because I was fired from a company where I led the marketing for. And my role was product marketing manager. This is Bold PMM. And working with so many startups at different levels. I mean, some were behemoth of a company, some were only in their early stages. They didn't even raise seed round yet. But working with all these companies led me to understand that they have the same problems, regardless of their budget or the same problems are that acquisition, getting demos done and getting more clients in the pipeline would cost them so much time and so much money and so much effort. And so many startups don't have the person to do it. So I've said, look, podcast might help in this way. The other is creating content. Even the biggest company I worked with, which is CloudShare or even Microsoft or AppsFlyer, the founders don't have a time to be interrogated by the marketing manager. They don't.
Yeah.
It's like the list of their worries and problems is to actually dedicate time to the content creator inside the company. So it's like they don't give the time to the content creator. They don't give the time to the marketing manager. So how could they lead with their vision and not share their vision? And so it was like, for me, it was a no-brainer. Look, I can put you on 3 shows each month, and all it takes from you is just a Zoom call. Would you be interested in that? It's not that content manager that is following you around the office and, look, do you have time now? Do you have time now? No, they don't have time. They're the founder pain point. And the third one is obviously, that content needs to be done in a certain way. And if we go and create a long form and out of this we repurpose and do so many posts, that is just a no-brainer. And this is how I created this offer, this Podstar. And this is how it started, with the pains that I had with my clients. And since then, it moved so many circles and developed so many times. And nowadays, it is also a community of 430 people that I run. And I invited all the podcast hosts that I've contacted with. to the community. And I've been speaking with over 1,000 podcast hosts for the last 2 years now. And some of them joined and they are now looking for guests inside this community. So it's like I wanted to become the person who lead the movement that podcast
Yeah.
marketing can be done. So this is what I do now. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, redirection is always a better direction in life. I feel sometimes when you are not given a choice unfairly, then it actually leads you to something better, to success, majority of the time. So,
Yeah.
like to this point, you said it took you some time to become an authority in this podcast industry, and how long actually did it take you before people start to notice you coming to you?
So
In
it's
pod-
funny. It
like
is
with
funny because when I invented this service, it was Friday night with my wife and thinking about it, and I was like, you know what? Let's create a landing page, see if someone is willing to pay for it. And next Sunday, I already had my first client. It just felt like it clicked. Something clicked there. Since then, becoming an expert, becoming a leader in this industry, it takes time. But I think that when you do good and you help people, and people can say, look, this guy is awesome. This guy has helped me speaking on podcast. This is the only way to become expert. Also, you can create your own frameworks, you can create your own systems, you can create your own software, for example, or even community. But that is just another feature.
you mean people want a sense of belonging and trust in the space.
Yeah.
I think with AI, there's a lot of things you can do and duplicate other companies, but then you can't really build up the reputation, brand, and the trust because you are still you. But there are many people offering the same thing, but you are still you.
Yeah.
So that's very good take. And like you just now mentioned that the decision was made with you and your wife on a Friday night. So like this is one question that I ask all founders. Like when you have a really hard decision to decide, for example, you're pivoting or to start something new or maybe to take on a new client or new market, like who would you go to ask this question or to get an advice? Like do you have a mentor, advisor, or was it just a wife?
I have many friends. Some are good in this thing, some are good in that thing. So I cannot just like, if it's a new offer that I just came up with for my head, obviously I would run it with some of my friends before that. But I think you should listen to yourself other than to listen to anyone else, because
Mhm.
me, if I had to speak with my friends 3 years ago before I invented this, and say, look, that might be something. Most probably, most people would say, I don't know, Gal, maybe you're just like imagining something. Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, I think that you should just go on, create, build, ship, iterate. That's it.
Because what I think what you were trying to say is some people will tell you that it might not be possible based on their perspective.
Yeah,
Because some people might not think it's possible as it's not possible from their like situation. So I get that.
yeah.
Yeah, I get that a lot. And so like how do you actually find the balance everything yourself, starting the company and doing this because it's kind of an isolating journey doing it alone. And I'm
Yeah.
sure like at the start you don't really have anyone on your team.
No, I onboarded my first employee 6 months ago, but it's not. It's like a half position. It's like she gives, I would say, 10 hours a week, nothing more,
Mhm.
no fancy. But I would say, these days with AI, you can create everything you want, and you can even create agents to support you, or to communicate with clients for you on your behalf. I would say that anyone with a good idea can create his own company without anyone else, even without investors, without any funds. You can just create. And it is sometimes feeling pretty lonely, because even at my worst time, no one can help me. I'm only accountable for everything. So at the worst time or at the best times, when I celebrate a new client, a new win. Usually the way I celebrate is just like going with my wife and spoiling her and going to a fancy restaurant. But eventually I'm alone at this. So it is
Yes.
a lone way. Yeah, for good and for bad.
Yeah, I think that I get that with a lot of founders now, especially with AI. You do not need to have a team, like you mentioned. There are agents, but at the end of the day, there is still a lack of humans around you. Yeah, we are surrounded by agents. They are not really human beings. So how did you like keep yourself motivated and to keep going, even like you mentioned on the worst days?
I think that for me, one of my intrinsic motivation would be that I've been in marketing for days and years, and just like I've seen so many things going on, and I've seen so many marketing gurus and content gurus trying to sell you on, yeah, look, buy my video package and create 10 videos and invest $50,000 in it, and it will give you the best results. And eventually, you stuck with 10 videos, zero audience, zero followers, and nothing. So I would say that for me, my motivation is that I've been there. I've paid people, I've paid experts to help me, and I left with nothing. And the way I see it now, podcast marketing is the best way to create content and ROI. And I just want to be, spread the gospel. So it's like I'm a believer. I actually do it because I believe in it. Rather than, it's not just that money. I actually give away so much information in my YouTube and in my posts and all the frameworks I invented. I just give it away for free just because I want people to use it. I want people to feel convenient and good about the way they do marketing. I want people to know that marketing is not, so many people think that marketing is to lie or something like that. And it's like, it hurts my feeling when people think that marketers are liars. So I just want to do thing and to spread the gospel and to help people. So this is my motivation.
Yeah, I also get that because marketing is about making something nice and to selling to someone when it's inconvenient for them. So selling convenience to someone who is suffering. So it can be seen as a lie, but it can also be seen as a way to help someone better. I think that they're varying perspective, but I get what you mean. So like one last question here. If there's one advice as a marketing expert that you can give to a software founder building in the US market, and what is one thing that they should focus on now in their marketing strategy compared to like years before, with all the changes now with AI, with YouTube,
Yeah.
like what
Yeah.
is one thing that they should really double down on?
I think that people need to double down on, and especially these days, because in 2 years from now, this opportunity will be gone. I think that nowadays people need to invest in their own brand. And by that, I mean they need to build in public. They need to share what they're doing. They need to share their pains. They need to share, to be more transparent, more, down to earth as well, because it's not about ego. It's about, look, every founder has a life mission, has a problem to solve. And if you speak about it out loud, you create this sort of community, this sort of, gatheredness around this topic. You would be successful. And this is what you need. And I would say that the opportunity to do it is now. Because in 2 years from now, we would probably have avatars that looks the same as us and speaks the same as us, even with this, accent that we have. And eventually they can do it for ourselves. But in the next 2 years, I think that this is the right moment to start your own brand, start building in the public and speaking about what you do.
Yeah, for sure. I think building in public is becoming more and more common, especially in the startup scene, because people want to see how the company got to where it is now instead of just appearing perfect and completed. The journey is what makes people stay, and maybe the struggle as well. I don't know, like if someone were to share about the struggles or things that they're doing while building the company, do you think it make more sense and more interest in people who are interested in their product compared to a product it is perfect and out in the market?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that eventually nowadays, everything is going to get commoditized. So, for
Yeah.
example, nowadays I can create a second Uber, I can create a third Uber, I can create a Facebook myself with a no-code tool. I can create whatever it is that I want. The only differentiator that is going to be is who made it, what's his story, and this is why you need to invest in it.
That's a very good thing. So this advice is definitely useful to be passed down to a lot of founders who are planning this podcast. And what is also one advice that you can give to founders who are not necessarily comfortable to start being on YouTube, building in public, or podcasting yet? Like, what can they do to eventually do it? Maybe in the next few months, but not now.
Look, I think that, it's the same saying that if a tree falls inside a forest, did it fail? The thing is, you need to be out there. You need to find the most comfortable way for you to do so. So for me, obviously, this genuine, normal conversation that we have, I think that for me is the best way to do it. If you are not comfortable with it, and you can be, I mean, even me, I wasn't comfortable with it. Look, my accent is not the most known accent in the world. But thing is, yeah, I need, I need to do it. But the way I do it is through podcasting. If you're not comfortable with it, you can do, blog. You can write on Reddit, for example. You can write wherever it is. You can go to others, people, groups, and networks and post there. Just go where there is audience. So don't start anything new or like a website that hoping people would stumble upon. You need to go to a place where they already have the attention around your industry, around your topic, and start, sharing. That's it.
So you mean to build distribution on a platform that is already visible, where there are people are already there. So they just
You can. You can borrow audience. That's the thing I do with podcasts.
I think YouTube is a global channel. It's just a place where all your audience are already there. You just need to find a way to catch their attention because they are there. You just need to find where are they.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you so much for your expertise in sharing about experience and about podcasting. I'm going to close this episode for Utopia Decision Room. So thank you, Gil, and I hope to see you again for the next episode.
Thank you so much, Gina. It was lovely.